Hello and welcome to another edition of the Rider Rumblings podcast. This is episode 195. Taylor Shire and Darrell Davis are with you talking about the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Thrilling, exciting, probably shouldn't have been 40-37 double overtime victory on the weekend, Darrell. And I say shouldn't have been, I mean it should have been a lot more lopsided early on, the score. The Riders should have won the game, but it shouldn't necessarily have ended that way.
Man, the fact that they went to double overtime is just crazy to me. That you're right, Taylor. They totally dominated that game, just like they totally dominated the BC Lions. And all of a sudden, they're in this situation where they've given up the lead late in the fourth quarter, and you go, how the heck did that happen? Somebody asked me about that, and I was just explaining, maybe they're too nice. You know, you and I have dealt with a lot of football teams over the years, and this is a really nice group of guys. Maybe they just don't have that real mean streak that they've got to work out of them a little bit. I don't know. It's just a hypothesis, but, you know, they're pro athletes. They're going to learn from it. They're a very good football team, but the fact that they had to do it in the late stages is pretty surprising. They obviously, that fumble by Trevor Harris and then that 120-yard missed field goal return by the Stampeders turned into 14 points. So I think that's the only thing that made it close. Otherwise, it was all Saskatchewan all the time, except they almost lost.
Well, they took their foot off the gas, and that's Trevor Harris talked about that post game, and I mean, you mentioned it like sure they're pro athletes on they're both sides, right? Everybody wants to win. It's not like they're not trying, but there's this level of urgency, and I don't know if it's necessarily play calling. Like I'm not going to crap on Mark Mueller for poor play calling, because you do have to be conservative and run out the clock. You can't just be throwing it in the fourth quarter when you have the lead, because it doesn't make sense. So it's hard to like give Mark Mueller, you know, bash on him for the play calling. And is it about execution? Is it about will, desire, want to close out the finish? Versus Calgary, they're obviously doing everything they can. And Trevor said it post game as well. When they need to do something, well, they're going to do it. Well, Calgary needed to get back in the game, and then the Riders needed to score in overtime, and they did. So maybe it just comes down to that, right? It's, you know, the salary cap's the same on both sides.
Yeah, maybe they like the drama. Yeah. We like the drama. It gives us something to write about and talk about, and the fans get something to talk about, and the TV audience says, wow, what an entertaining game. So I guess they're playing along, but I don't think that it should have been as you said, as close as it should have been. Obviously, some injuries. The Roughriders are hurting a little bit in their secondary. Losing running back A.J. Ouellette hurts them a little bit too. I know Thomas Bertrand-Hudon is good, but he's not quite A.J. Ouellette's status, so that hurts their game plan a little bit too. A lot of people are talking about Josh Bell, the new defensive coordinator. Did he, you know, overplay his hand a little bit in the third and fourth quarters, you know, by blitzing too much when he didn't have to? There's a lot of things that go into losing a lead. And as your point's the most valid one, that Calgary's got a decent football team and really was desperate. The Stampeders are now 0-2, and they're fighting like heck to make sure they didn't lose that second straight game, especially against a team that they beat last year and that they manhandled last year, basically, and kind of gloated about it. It sounds like during the offseason and leading up to this game that they had Saskatchewan's number that nobody else had last season. So they're maybe a little bit overconfident and found themselves fighting back pretty hard in the later stages of that game.
Yeah, that was a big box, and I wrote about that post-game. A big box for them to check was beating Calgary this season. They couldn't do it last year. That was one of the things they couldn't do, and there was always that little question mark. And Calgary, they talked about that in the media as well, about how they would have liked to play Saskatchewan in the Grey Cup because they would have beat them, or so they thought. And then the other box was beating BC in week one, who were, again, the sort of Grey Cup favorites coming into the season because of Nathan Rourke. So to me, they're, you know, sure, it's not as nice or great or pleasant of a win as you would like if you're a football coach or a player, but they're 2-0 and they've checked two pretty big boxes, in my opinion.
Yeah, those are two teams that were probably picked. A lot of people picked them ahead of the Roughriders, right? We've talked about how much the Roughriders have undergone changes in the offseason. I think a lot of people were thinking, wow, that's a major overhaul of that roster. And they did lose some good players, but the core is still there. They're still a very strong offense. They're finding their way on defense despite the injuries. So they're going to be a bit vulnerable, but I still think they're one of the better teams in the league. And to knock off two of the teams that were supposed to be real competitors, I think bodes well for the Roughriders. Their worry, and I think that we can segue into this one, is, are they in kicking trouble again, right? So I do a post-game show on CGME, and a guy phoned in and called Alex Hale, the new kicker, Alex Fail. They said he's already got a nickname for him because he's 5 out of 7. I thought that might be a little harsh, but if you can't count on a guy, they just went through a full season of Brett Lothar and wondering if they could trust Brett Lothar to make that kick. Where do they sit now?
Yeah, and you want the utmost confidence in your kicker. You don't want to think about it. Here's the situation. You're rolling out there, not, oh, do we have to make a decision based on the kicker? Obviously, you make a decision based on the wind, which I don't think they made the right decision on Saturday because Alex Hale had just missed that convert, and then they roll him out for the field goal, which they probably shouldn't have even attempted anyway. And it almost cost, to me, that was, if they would have lost the game, it would have been all on that play, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it was,
he had the leg. He had the leg, right? Alex Hale, it was long enough.
Yeah, but the wind can swirl it around. It's like driving a golf ball into the wind. Sure, you can hit it far, but you don't know where it's going to go.
Whoosh, right? One way or the other.
So it's 23-7 at that point. Does 26-7 really give you that much more of a confidence boost versus 23-14, what it turned out to be, and all the momentum? I don't think those 3 points were worth it. We see sometimes where you're like, and you're near your shadows of your goal post, and you're deciding, oh, do I give up the safety? Is the 2 points worth it versus the field position? I don't think the 3 points were worth going for it in that. Sure, he could have made it, and they could have had 3 more points, but I don't think it was worth it.
Yeah, you're right. Trying to steal a few points, Corey Mace, the head coach, said afterwards, right? And you're right, 26-7. What's the difference between 26-7? They've totally dominated. You go to the half, even if you eat the ball at the end and just don't run it, maybe he's trying to score a touchdown, but
I think you throw it.
Probably throw it because they did have 6 seconds left. If they had gotten, they had time for another play. That was it, right? Because they got the ball back with 10 seconds left. Exume recovered the wind-aided kickoff. So they had a big turnover, and I think they wanted to really capitalize on that. And I think Corey Mace got a little carried away with it. But they had 10 seconds and threw a pass to get it down to 6 seconds and got them a little closer. Maybe try another play and see if it works and try a 4-second play. And if you get another 10 yards of it, then a 37-yard field goal, maybe not quite as risky. So a lot of things went wrong for them, and they managed to recover. But you're right; it almost took the entire wind out of their sails because it sure gave Calgary some momentum.
Yeah, and they brought out what he called the Hawkeye defense, which is not the offensive linemen, but the linebackers who can cover. So somebody obviously missed their assignment, or a couple of people, because if you're planning to have the other team return the ball with your coverage guys out there, you shouldn't let that happen. It's not like they were caught off guard. They totally planned for that ball to be potentially returned.
And we looked that over. They have 2 offensive linemen and 2 defensive linemen on the front, right? And then they have a couple of linebackers on the outside. Usually you have more linebacker type guys, body types out there. The 2 defensive linemen, I know they're a little faster than offensive linemen, but I don't know. It wasn't a real strong coverage unit because downfield tackling is defensive backs and linebackers are the best at that. Defensive linemen, not so much. So it was a weird Hawkeye arrangement for us to see. I'm used to seeing way more linebackers on a group like that. And I think you're right. They also blew an assignment there. Whether on the replay, you can see an assignment's clearly been blown, but the personnel might need a little bit of tinkering with too, if they're not going to let that happen again.
Yeah. Anyway, I think your thought is probably the best thought. Maybe if you ask Corey Mace again, what he would do is you have those 6 seconds, go throw one more play. And if you run out of time, well, shoot. So what? If you gain those 10 yards, that's a valuable 10 yards. And then if the pass goes incomplete and you maybe have 2 seconds, then you're sort of left with the decision to, do you go for it? Do you not? I don't know. You sort of put yourself back in that situation. Because he did that again in the third quarter, right? Elected to not go for it.
And he didn't go for a 1-point kick either one time. He went for a 2-point convert, which I guess strategically was probably the thing to do. But it shows some questioning of the confidence that he has in his kicker. Even though after the game he told you and a lot of the reporters, I have total faith in Alex Hale. Well, of course he's going to say that, right? But his strategy said otherwise.
Yeah, you don't want the confidence in your players, as I said before, to determine your strategy. Mm-hmm. You want to have your best lineup out there, and I think it did. So you want to have your best line, and it did with Brett Lothar last year. There was a couple of times where he said, I'm not going to roll out the kicker. Let's keep the offense out there. You don't want that, right? And So is Hale going to kick through this? To me, the leash has to be longer than what it is if he's going to win the kicking job out of camp. As a global, I don't know how many more global field goal kickers are out there.
How many are there? And that was a risky gamble. 3rd and 8. You're right. Probably, near midfield, obviously, but they have faith in their offense to
but exactly, Trevor Harris, Sam Emilus, those guys. You're like, Al, you do anything.
Yeah,
you do whatever you want. I have all the faith in you. Keane Schaefer-Baker, throw it over the middle.
Yeah,
better than a rookie kicker, in my opinion.
Right. And we talked during training camp, was Hale actually the best kicker? No, I don't think he was the best kicker in camp, right? But they probably used him for a global spot because we thought Anthony Kim was the better kicker. Was it Anthony Kim? Jonathan Kim, sorry. They're gone so fast sometimes, right? But, Kim seemed to be the better one. He had the stronger leg and seemed to be more accurate too, but I guess the way they wanted to make up their roster, maybe it'll hurt them. But how long do you go with it? I think, it's a shorter week this week, so I'm thinking that Hale is there again. But if he's missing one field goal per game, I don't know how long a leash he's got.
Yeah, and maybe that would be something that they would do is bring back an American. You would lose a defensive lineman probably on the roster, maybe a linebacker, which would be a valuable special teamer. To bring in an American kicker because your global sort of counts as your extra player.
Yep.
I don't think there's many national kickers that are out there that would potentially be replacements, in my opinion.
Lewis Ward.
Yeah, sure, but you could bring in a guy like that.
Yeah. He doesn't have real length, but he's pretty accurate. But I think that Montreal just add him to their.
They did to the practice roster, yeah.
Yeah, so you could take him off the practice roster.
You could sign him exactly and put him on your active roster. So
they found that last year that having a Canadian kicker was tough to replace him.
Yes,
right. Remember how some of the fiascos they had afterwards. So finding an American kicker is a lot easier. The guys they got, the global kickers have kicked for American colleges, so they're basically American trained and should be strong enough. And if there's enough of them, but there's probably more of them than there are Canadians available, but not as many as there are Americans available.
So another, big storyline is the play of Keane Schaefer-Baker this season. I mean, outstanding game last week, again against Calgary. He's up to almost 300 yards in 2 games. And for a guy who hasn't hit 1,000 yards in his career on a season yet, he's certainly poised to do that.
He is. He's reliable. He blocks downfield. The other guys block for him. He's a popular guy. You and I talked to him. We know that he's a sincere. It means a lot to him to play hard here, and he's a real fan favorite. He's played exceptionally well. I don't think he's dropped the ball. It's been catchable all year, has he?
No.
He played only 5 games, I think, last year, and that's the story of his career so far, is that he's been injured because they expect big things. If he's healthy this year, man, oh man. And Sam Emilus, the start he got, and Sam Emilus had a decent game again. Keyshawn Johnson, those big 3 of the 5 receivers, they use the other guys, of course, but those big 3, led by Keane Schaefer-Baker. Wow, if he continues at this pace, he's instant game breaker. And they're on the same page. You can tell he's on the same page with quarterback Trevor Harris. Just a spectacular start to his season.
Yeah, and I wrote about it also, but Trevor, I think he's looking better than he did at the start of last year. And maybe that's offensive line. Maybe that's wisdom and age. Now that he's 40, he's got that bit of a swagger. I don't know. He looks as good as he has.
He'll get better. Look how Tom Brady got. You get into a spot where you've seen every defense. You know what they're doing. You know what your receivers are doing. That's where Trevor Harris is. He says he'll run if he has to. I don't think he should ever run. You notice when he's getting sacked now, he doesn't strain. He just kind of goes down. Good idea. You don't want him straining or hurting anything. Just take the sack if it happens. It doesn't happen very often. The offensive line's played pretty well and has protected him pretty well. If he takes a hit, and then just away you go. Start the next one and let him be healthy. And boy, he could have an amazing season. He's a year smarter. We always talk about a year older. He's probably a little frailer too, because as you get older, you do get frailer. But man, the experience and the knowledge he has in his brain and the touch he's got. He was mad. It was a windy game, and he lost a couple of balls in the wind, you could tell, and he was mad about it afterwards. But otherwise, he threw exceptionally well in Calgary and has thrown exceptionally well the entire season.
Yeah. So on the other side, Saskatchewan's defense, I don't believe they forced a turnover yet. We talk about a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? You're right.
Yeah. Is that concerning? Like, they did get some good pressure. They've got a couple of sacks in each game, but for how, turnover prone. I guess the defense wasn't enforcing turnovers the last couple of years. Last year, especially, I don't think they have that same tenaciousness on the football yet. Anyway, it doesn't seem like that. Tavon Campbell missed a pick in the first game, and was it Marcus Sales could have had one this last game, but they just don't.
Sales could have 2 in 2 games. He had chances on them, and you're right. Tavon Campbell missed a pick 6, so they got to catch the ball a little bit. But you're right; they've had to make a few changes on the defense, and it's surprising, especially because Josh Bell, the coordinator, is calling a few more blitzes. You would expect a few more turnovers. He likes sitting back in zone a lot of times too, and hoping that they just throw interceptions. It's funny that they haven't. I'd imagine that could change in a big hurry, though. This defense is probably getting more and more experienced working together, so that's going to help them. And I think those turnovers can certainly come in bunches and might even turn a game around, right? Get 3 or 4 one game because they're capable of it. They are ball hawks back there, most of them, but Jameer Thurman and his blitzing, he hasn't had a real dominant game. He's just a solid player, but we'll see how these guys start going and start getting in the faces of the opposing quarterbacks, and that'll set up more interceptions and maybe some lost fumbles.
Yeah, I predict at least 1 turnover on Friday when Toronto comes to Regina. Chad Kelly, he threw 4 interceptions last week.
And 4 touchdowns.
And 4 touchdowns and 420-some yards. Toronto won the game, so they're going to come in on a bit of I feel like they have some confidence. They're playing a home game at Mosaic Stadium. I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I hope they come out of the tunnel. I hope they switch.
You hope Toronto comes out of the tunnel?
Yes.
No, Toronto's going to be in the visitors' locker room, right? That's not going to be much of a change, other than Saskatchewan has to call the coin flip, I guess, right? Yeah. So and they'll probably still
they'll wear their white away uniforms, I guess.
Well, that way they're keeping Toronto from wearing their popular white jerseys too, I guess, right?
Yeah. But I mean, Toronto. That game was earlier on Saturday, but they beat Ottawa 44-24 and looked good. Did Ottawa look great? No. Did Toronto look great? Well, yes, because they were playing Ottawa, maybe. A bit of both.
Had their moments, yeah. Toronto, yeah. Chad Kelly is capable of doing great things, right? I get a little bit more Vernon Adams-esque than I thought, though, with all the interceptions. But you know what? He didn't misthrow very many of those interceptions. They were actually – Ottawa didn't play exceptionally well, but the turnovers were like highlight level turnovers, right? Some of the interceptions they made, Chad Kelly threw a pretty good football. I don't think there might have been one that was a real bad mistake, but the others were just good plays by defensive players. So kudos to Ottawa, and maybe that's something that you think that Chad Kelly was bad. No, not especially bad. He also threw 4 pretty good interceptions. He sliced right through some coverage a few times, so he seems to be playing pretty well considering he missed last season with that leg injury. Right?
Yeah. So the Argos come in at 1-1. Ottawa 0-2. You wonder if they make a change with Jake Mayer, former Rider, at quarterback. Maybe they go to Drew Brown in the coming weeks. And then, of course, the Riders are 2-0. Calgary's 0-2, which after what they started last year, bit of a surprise. I mean, it's early. The biggest surprise to me is BC 0-2. Edmonton 2-0.
Edmonton 2-0.
I wouldn't have had that. I would have had those flipped.
I know. Isn't that wild? It's not tough. Considering Saskatchewan's schedule and that they're 2-0, that's impressive. I don't think I would have had Edmonton as the only other undefeated team at this stage, though. But they're playing pretty well, the Elks. And that Justin Rankin, what a running back, man! He takes a nothing play and turns it into a first down and a potential touchdown every time he touches the football. So that's dangerous, and he's fun to watch. So we'll see how the Elks do. If they just keep giving him the football, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, the Riders have such a weird schedule. Toronto twice in the next 6 weeks. Toronto twice, Ottawa twice. Toronto twice, Hamilton twice, Edmonton twice. It's kind of bizarre. They don't see Montreal for, I don't know.
This is a CFL schedule maker. Nothing's bizarre. It's just goofy.
Until there's snow on the ground, the Alouettes won't be playing here.
I don't know how they make this schedule and how they do it, and it's usually pretty goofy. And I'm sympathetic more so this year because the Argonauts are coming here for a home game because the World Cup is being played in Toronto Stadium, as they call it, in BC Place Stadium. So it's unusual for it to happen. The Argonauts made a horrible strategic mistake. I know that they're doing it for the money because they'll get a decent gate at Mosaic Stadium, but they should have done what the BC Lions did and stayed in their province, gone to London or Guelph or something and built their fan base rather than came to Saskatchewan and Winnipeg for those road home games, and just to earn some money.
Yeah, well, I guess the Riders will take it because they got to play in Saskatoon for it, and now they'll get a bit of a bonus home game, I guess, if you will. So that game will go on Friday night as the Argonauts come to Mosaic to visit the Roughriders, and that'll do it for episode 195 of the Rider Rumblings podcast. Darrell, thanks as always for joining, and enjoy the game this week as always.
You bet. You're welcome, Taylor.